effect. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's study hall. What's today's date?
I have no
Who
idea.
cares?
October
Who
25th.
cares?
October 25th.
It's COVID year, so who cares? Okay.
Right.
I'm here with Troy Pacelli. And,
hey, how y'all doing? And what you sipping on tonight?
I got myself a Snapple apple.
Snapple apple.
Yes,
that sounds really.
Have you ever had one of these before?
Um,
Oh, I'm gonna pop.
I probably have.
And it's not. I can't open it. This is not
Snapple
good.
was the kind of you are getting to be an aged boomer.
It is not opening. Give me a minute.
Snapple was a drink that I used to drink when I was in college. I don't know why. I guess it was easily available. It was served on campus, and so yes, I absolutely did. Is that the one that's got the little message inside the cap?
I know. I'll read you this one. Okay. Oh, can I read this?
Bottled in New York.
No. It's a trivia fact. Real fact number 911. A cubic mile of fog is made up of less than a gallon of water.
Interesting. I could see that. That makes sense. Okay.
It's not bad. It's like a liquid form of like a candy apple. Okay.
Yeah. and did you read that without having to put on special glasses?
I had my special glasses on.
You are an
I have distance glasses, so that's my issue. Let me go ahead and go in here.
So I am drinking a drink called. Well, I'm sure that there's a name for it. If someone in the chat wants to shout it out and help me out, I call it Good Morning America. It's an energy drink mixed with a little bit of Everclear.
Oh, well,
so you can. So my motto for it would be stay up and get drunk all over again.
That sounds good, actually.
It's not bad. It's really not bad. I should be pretty much 3 sheets to the wind by the time this stream is over.
All right. Well, hey, I might be better off doing that as well. I want to say hi to everybody. Mr. Matchstick, hello. Everyone, don't forget we watch at 11 o'clock. Melissa Harris, back to the drawing boards here. Daniel Herron, Brian Gilmartin, Casey Scott, and I think that's everyone. Apologize if I missed. Oh, Leia plus size.
Leia plus size. Oh, never miss my girl Leia plus size.
But
the person who's missing though is Netter. She was busy on something right up till the last minute, so she had to do some cleanup.
No, I understand.
She'll be here later.
I was busy working on my 31 horror movies on Amazon Prime.
I saw that dropped. I haven't had a chance to look at that.
It's okay. Take your time. We were just talking before the chat about reading versus off the cuff, and I think I tried doing off the cuff, and then I fell back to reading. I got to tell you, Sound Engraver would not have been happy with some of the words I was saying last night.
Well, but they're
not it. Well, go ahead.
That is one of the upsides to a pre-recorded show as opposed to like this, a live stream. In a live stream, there's no dump button, there's no editing or whatever. Whereas a video you're doing, you're like, I mean, I've done that video that you guys might have seen, the Klingon cooking video.
Oh yeah,
I did. I put together a script, I read it, and I did. Okay, let's try that again. And
I kept doing that all night. Yeah,
exactly. And then it all gets fixed in the editing. It's like Netter's like, wow, that sounds so good. You did that all in one take. I'm like, crap, no, no way. She's like, well, you edited it really well.
Hey, no, I thought it sounded very professional. And especially some of those Klingon words, they have to be hard to say. Like, you'll get the rest of the sentence right, then you get to that one word, and then like, did I pronounce that right? It's like,
I'll tell you what, I did stumble over those a couple times too, and I know that some of them are probably still wrong. So there's going to be some people in the Klingon community that are going to come back. They probably won't say anything on the video, but they'll send me a private message and go, "Actually, you pronounced that wrong," and I actually appreciate that because when you're trying to learn a language, if someone doesn't help you out with it, you'll never get it right.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time too with some how you pronounce some people's names. Like there was a Japanese director that I wanted to give him credit for one of the movies.
Yep.
I'm like, how do I say his name? I'm just gonna hopefully say it right. And I kept saying it wrong, and I kept saying it wrong even with my pretend pronunciation. I kept like reading it wrong, and I kept doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But well, we got some stories tonight. some happy, well, maybe not happy stories. I don't know.
Let's just try to do our best to put a positive spin on it.
We're going to put a positive spin. Do you want to start with Charlie Brown? I was going to end with that, but Melissa brought it up. What do you think?
You know what? I still would like to end with that, because that'll lead us into what's coming up in the successive weeks.
That sounds good. Okay.
So I did want to put that one.
All right. So we're going to get to that, Melissa. Okay. So hold on. Let me get rid of that. Actually, I'll just go to somebody else. All right. Hold on. Anyway, dead air is never a good thing. So what would you like to start with, Troy?
Wow. Well, now I need to address the comment from Back to the Drawing Board, who I think was technically first. I put a photo up in the I took a screen capture, and I think Back to the Drawing Board was first today.
Sure.
Even though I don't think he's showing up now in the live chat.
Okay.
Will you be reading any Shakespeare in the original Klingon on your channel? I didn't think about it. But years ago, when I was first imagining doing something with YouTube related to the Klingons, the local guy who's an expert in the Klingon language had suggested that I do something like that. I'm like, well, I would need you to coach me through it. And he said he'd be willing to do it. So maybe I will. I do have all the books that have been put out that are translations. So I do have Hamlet. I have Much Ado About Nothing. I'm trying to remember what else has been actually published that's been translated, but I definitely could. So, the tahbe, that, the to be or not to be soliloquy would actually be a great one. I don't think there's many people that have done it and recorded it. So I might end up doing that just as like a filler video on the Klingon Cleric channel. Thanks for bringing that up, Back to the Drawing Board. So the answer is yes.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, do you want to start off with maybe some Star Trek news? The thing you sent me first in the email?
Was that something I had in the notes, or was that the last?
Not in the notes. It was a last minute thing, unless you want to save it for next week.
Refresh my memory, since it's not in my notes.
Okay, well, I'll just bring it up now. Star Trek Picard prequel following Riker and Troy announced.
Oh, right. Yeah, let me grab a hold of the. Yeah.
Tell you what, I'll do a little bit of reading, okay, while you're doing that.
You do that while I drop the link.
Okay.
For attribution.
Sure. Star Trek Picard brought back Jonathan Frakes as William Riker and Marina Sirtis as Deanna Troi from Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yep.
Here's the synopsis from Simon & Schuster. The Alpha Quadrant is mired in crisis. Within the United Federation of Planets, a terrorist strike on the shipyards of Mars has led to the shutdown of all relief efforts for millions of Romulans facing certain doom from an impending supernova. But when the USS Titan is drawn into a catastrophic incident on the Romulan Federation border, Captain William Riker, his family, and his crew find themselves caught between the shocking secrets of an enigmatic alien species and the deadly agenda of a ruthless Tal Shiar operative. Forced into a wary alliance with a Romulan starship commander, Riker and the Titan crew must uncover the truth to stop a devastating attack, but one wrong move could plunge the entire sector into open conflict! Exclamation point.
So there's a couple, as with all of these things, I like to kind of dig into them, and there are multiple layers here. So the first thing is they're talking about this book, The Dark Veil, right? By James Swallow. It's a book that is directly placed within the Picard, what do you call it? Timeline or continuity or whatever. Mm-hmm. Whether or not a book is canon or not, that's a whole other level of conversation that we don't want to weed into those weeds too much. But that is one element of it. But this isn't something new. The stories of Riker and Troy on the Titan have been in book format for a while now. This is just the first one since Picard, addressed their later stories. So what happens? They were very popular in the last couple episodes of Picard. It's just like with Discovery and the Christopher Pike stuff. This all sucks, but oh my gosh, this is a bright ray. Oh, well, the fans like this. Let's do something with that. Strange New Worlds, same thing with Picard. Oh, they hated Picard, but they liked Riker, so let's do a Riker series. Again, just like we said last week about the Pike series, I don't believe it's happening until it actually happens. How long have we been sitting and waiting and hearing about Section 31? They keep talking about projects that are going to happen, and they're always in the works, but until they actually get on screen, I don't actually see them happening. I don't see any reason why Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis wouldn't be on board for it. I mean, it's not like either one of them is hurting for work, but I don't think they're going to turn it down either. But so we share it because it's out there in the blogosphere. It's out there in the news. Who is it? CBR or something like that. Comic book research. Yeah. So take that for what it's worth. I gave you the attribution comicbook.com. If, even a blind pig is right once in a while, right?
Oh, wait a minute. Though. I thought this was a book.
It is a book, but then there's been speculation that they're going to turn it into a new series.
Oh, of course, yes.
On the show.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying there's many layers to this.
Because that was Al's favorite part of the series, right?
Exactly. And most people that saw it said the same thing. And my take on it is it's even worse, right? Because I look at that and I go, this is an example of how good it could have been. Talk about missed opportunities. We should have had a Riker Titan series before we got any of this other BS. I mean, it's very much like DC and their Suicide Squad, always putting the cart in front of the horse.
Could you imagine if they had just done a series with Riker as captain, maybe had a new crew, but Riker's the captain? Wouldn't that have been interesting?
It would have been awesome. But actually, any of these ideas that they've done, I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with the original concept for Discovery. There's nothing inherently wrong with the original idea for Picard. It's just the way they've gone about it, by completely ignoring canon. Okay, don't be fooled, people. Anybody who's listening to this, right? You 10 people that are watching that have already thumbs us up. Thank you so much. And anybody in the future that's watching this or listening to this video, let me be very clear about this. There is really almost nobody in fandom who has a problem with Mikey Spock being a female and being black, gay representation, just keep going down the line of all the ists and phobes that people want to accuse us of. None of those things are inherently a problem. The problem is the writing. The problem is the story. And the problem is the lack of loyalty to the canon. You can't call it Star Trek if you don't respect the canon. Yeah, because then it is no longer Star Trek.
And that goes back to that that article about Rhianna Pratchett and Neil Gaiman.
Neil Gaiman, exactly. Yeah. The thing that bothers me so much is the defense that people will come up with is, look at all these examples from the Next Gen and all these other things where the canon was wrong. And I go, that's not a defense. That's a problem too. I'm intellectually honest. I can point out when something was bad in the Next Gen. It happened. They did storylines, and there's whole YouTube channels dedicated to bringing these things up and pointing them out and ripping them apart. There was one episode where they said, the warp factor, the way we do warp is destroying the galaxy, so we have to limit warp factor to warp 5. And they actually played with that going forward for a couple episodes, even in Deep Space Nine, and then it was never mentioned again. So the only thing you can do is kind of retroactively say, well, they must have come up with some solution that fixed the environmental problem, But don't cite bad canon or, removal of something from canon as an example. No. I mean, sometimes they did bad things and then retroactively fixed them because they realized it was stupid. In the first season of Next Gen, this is a bit of trivia you may not have even been aware of, Aged Boomer, but there was a thought, an expectation, a belief that the Klingon Empire was now part of the Federation.
Mm-hmm.
And they specifically had lines that spoke to that. And then in subsequent seasons, they retroactively said, no, it's just that there's an alliance. They're still separate.
Yeah.
And they did that for very good storytelling reasons. So you have to, as a fan, go, well, then we have to say that they misspoke, or, you know, whatever you have to do to retroactively smooth over that canon, you know?
I
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I remember when Next Generation first aired, and I saw Worf on the crew, and I'm like, what is a Klingon doing on a starship?
Yep.
Because I had just gotten away from these Star Trek movies, and the Federation and the Klingon Empire were still they're not cozy yet.
And that was very intentional.
Yeah.
That you had the exact right reaction. Now, the explanation changed over 2 seasons. It started with he was a Klingon who joined the Federation, or, well, the Klingons became part of the Federation, and he just enlisted in Starfleet, just the way Spock would have, right? But then second season, they decided, no, we want to keep the Klingons separate. We're just going to say there's a peace accord, like Russia and the United States at the time, right? But then how do you explain Worf? Then they went into that whole backstory where he was adopted by human parents, raised in the Federation. He's a person outside of his own culture.
His family was disgraced, right?
Yeah. And
Something
there was
like
a
that,
long arc that dealt with that. And then bringing in his brother, who was still in the Federation, or it's still in the Klingon Empire. Great storytelling. I mean, that's an example of working with the canon to come up with better and better stories. Anyway, I'm sorry. I've kind of gone off on a tangent about problems with STD and Picard, but back to that again.
You made a good point, though, with TNG, how there were issues with that first season. I remember first watching it, and I stopped watching TNG after that first season, went to Doctor Who, and I eventually came back to TNG later on when I heard it was getting much better. But I remember, but with Star Trek Discovery, it had a rough first season, but I thought, okay, this is the rough season. They're going to fix the problems later on. That didn't happen. It actually got a lot worse because there were some good ideas in that first season. I like the fact that they spent a number of episodes in the Mirror Universe. I thought it was interesting. I enjoyed, I like the fact that even that we never get to see a Klingon war between the Klingons and the Federation. I always heard about those things. So it was interesting to see that on the show.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily like what they did with the design of the Klingons for the series, but there were good ideas in season 1.
Well, talk about a missed opportunity, because we, even in that Star Trek 6, or excuse me, Star Trek 6 era, where you had Star Trek on the Next Generation, and it with Spock making references to the movie that hadn't come out yet. Then the movie comes out. There was one little element that was dropped from the movie that appears in the novelization that I feel was a wonderful homage to the canon of the original series. It didn't need to be addressed, but it would have been so awesome had it been. In the novels, there is a reference to the Organian peace treaty and how there were these skirmishes happening on the Klingon Federation border. And someone brought up, why aren't the Organians stepping in? And some diplomat says, we haven't heard from the Organians in 20 years or something like that. A lot of people think the Organians have left the galaxy. So the Klingons are starting to test the boundaries and realizing that there is nothing preventing them from invading Federation space anymore. It was just a backstory to talk about what could be arguably an issue in continuity that, sets the stage for what was going on. I thought it was brilliant. They decided to leave it out of the movie. And so arguably it's not really canon, but anyway, I could go on about this for 2 hours, so I don't want to derail the whole show on my talk about Star Trek. But I will mention that I do have my Trek Tuesdays coming up in the next couple of weeks, so we'll probably be picking up some of these same themes. If you all are really interested, you're going to want to join me for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to mention too that they had a Star Trek Six director's cut. Did that stuff show up in the director's cut at all? Or
No,
okay,
unfortunately, those scenes were never actually filmed. What was filmed and not shown until the director's cut were some scenes that directly related to the Klingon Federation conspiracy. You know, the Admiral West and
right.
his assassination attempt, and the whole thing about, well, that's not Klingon blood and all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. And
Yeah, the Scooby-Doo ending.
exactly, the Scooby-Doo ending. Exactly. It didn't have to exist, but it doesn't. It's nice that they added it to the director's cut, but the fact that it was cut was one of those things where you look at it and you go, I kind of see why they cut it. It's not strictly necessary, you know?
Yeah.
I love Star Trek 6. I mean, not just because it was the movie that, you know, that was the center of Nanette and I meeting. That's a story that I'll probably bring up on my Trek Tuesdays, maybe.
Well, I think Star Trek Six gets forgotten a lot because, and I don't know why, because of course, you have the first one, the motion picture, then you have kind of the trilogy, which is 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
I think people tend to forget about 6, and 6 is a really good ender.
The reason people forget about 6, I think, is because so many people had negative reactions to 5.
Yeah, but 6, they brought back Nicholas Myers, and 6 is I consider it a murder mystery. It's like a conspiracy murder mystery. That's the type of movie it is, and it's a very good film.
It's brilliant.
I like the fact too that it actually cleared up a lot of things in my head, like how are the Federation and Klingons getting along? Well, it starts in this movie, and you see the old crew dealing with these new ideas and about how, you know, maybe history needs to forget men like you and I. I think Klingon Chancellor says something to that effect to Kirk, and I thought that was interesting.
The brilliant thing was I thought they could have done more with this, but the fact that they did it at all, I thought was brilliant. Was putting out a movie and having Star Trek: The Next Generation on TV at the same time and acknowledging it and having that kind of parallel where you have Spock in The Next Generation and he makes direct reference to the events of Star Trek 6. You know, I felt they could have done more with it, but just the fact that it was there at all, I thought was absolutely brilliant. That was the apex for the Paramount CBS relationship, you know, of Star Trek, when things were really running smooth, and it has been all downhill since then. And I think they're just now getting to a place where they're realizing they got to get that back, but they have a long way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I want to address something that Leia Plus Size said about like bad writing and other things. I don't have proof of this. But I suspect that some of the writers on this show are getting the positions out of nepotism.
Actually, I think it could be a little bit of nepotism. I think it's more, you know, the whole diversity push. We've got to get more of this kind of person, more of that kind of person, people that believe this, people that believe that, instead of who really is the best for the job. I'm sorry, I hate to be political, but there's no way to separate this from politics. It's this concept of tokenism. You know, it's not who's best for the job, but it's who fits a checkbox. And in so doing, the art suffers because of it. You know, that I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people that are coming in because they want to push a particular message. And they say, well, Star Trek has always been about pushing messages. Yes, it has, but it always put the story first. The message was secondary, you know, and you ended up going, man, I love that episode. And, ooh, hey, I learned something. I thought about this issue, you know, instead of, oh, here we go. I'm being preached at again. Let's see what's on the other channel.
There's a difference between being topical rather than maybe being political or preachy in your narratives. You know, I mean, you can bring up topics and you can let the reader decide what they think of them. You know what I mean? Like maybe even controversial issues. But
so Big Al, Star Trek 5. You know what, Big Al? I think one of the things I might do on one of my Trek Tuesdays is a rewatch of Star Trek 5. I'm going to ask you to co-host with me, and I'm going to see if I can't. I can't put too positive a spin on Star Trek 5. It's not that great a movie. You're absolutely right. But see if I can't help you to see some positive aspects about it, because it's not all bad. There are some good things about it.
Yeah, well, I've always had the thoughts with Star Trek 5 that was a everything that could go wrong did go wrong. That was a Murphy's Law thing.
Yep.
As opposed to it, because I think the initial premise was a good one. I just think it just didn't come together in the end. But and part of that was, I think, due to a writer's strike that was happening at the time. But that's a whole nother can of worms. But anyway,
but that's something I'll definitely talk about at that point, because you're absolutely right. Those are important factors. But that's a great example of some good ideas, some bad writing, and too much involvement by a actor director who shouldn't have had as much control as he did.
Well,
and I'm not talking about Picard this time around.
I know. I yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Just to let y'all know, Netter just sat down to her computer. So those of you that are desperately waiting for your Hi Sweeties, they'll be coming shortly.
Okay. Oh, Al, the best thing about Star Trek 5, it ended. Oh, that's so mean. Actually, have you ever watched the original Siskel and Ebert review for Star Trek 5?
I have not, but
you should check it out, because they
I'll
typically
check it out in advance of my rewatch.
They did typically like the Star Trek movies, but that one they were.
Oh yeah, it absolutely was the weakest of the 6 movies with the original cast. But I do want to say this, AJ Boomer. I'll repeat myself. I could talk about this for 2 hours, but we are now like a half hour into the show, and we haven't even hit on the 7 topics that we originally had planned to talk about for the show.
It's my show. We're going to talk about.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm
kidding.
As your sidekick, it is my job to just let you know and let you decide.
No, we're going to do this.
First officer here,
yes.
And I'm just,
Let's do the from Entertainment Weekly. HBO's The Witches cast the wrong kind of spell by Leah Green Byatt. I think I got her name right. Probably.
Let me go ahead and grab a hold of that reference while you talk about
it. Anyone here a fan of Roald Dahl's The Witches, the old movie from the 80s, or that's depressing that I'm saying the old movie from the 80s now. Anyway,
I have to admit that I had actually forgotten they did a movie. I have read the original book. I am a huge Roald Dahl fan. But I actually don't even remember the 80s film.
Yeah, you know what that is? I was a kid when I saw it, and it didn't leave a lasting impression. And I loved Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That went in the VCR as much as Star Wars did when I was a child. But
as a fan of Roald Dahl, I do recognize that Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory has some great differences from the book. So I do see them as 2 separate things.
Gotcha. And I liked it better than Charlie and the Chocolate
Factory.
Oh,
yeah. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory claimed that it was trying to be more faithful to the book. It was not. And it was not.
And are we running into that here with this new Witches movie? I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it.
I don't know. I haven't seen it. My first reaction is I see who's cast in it, and I go, I don't know. She's a good enough actress that I know she could probably play the role, but that makes me question if you chose her. What is the director doing with it? I don't know. But the article sure sounded like they didn't have a great deal of faith in it.
Yeah, it's that's Anne Hathaway, right?
Anne Hathaway, who I kind of have a love-hate relationship with. I mean,
she's hit or miss. I'll say that. Yeah. As far as the Witches go, they changed it from 80s England to 1968 Alabama.
That's a huge problem to begin with. I'm telling you, that is the first problem I'm going to have with any interpretation. A setting is as important as a characterization, because the location in and of itself is like a character.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. Because I would often tell when I would do creative writing lessons, I would say, your setting can be a character in and of itself,
Yeah. exactly.
It
And it's important because I've said this about shows set in Chicago, shows and movies and so forth. I get something extra out of it as a Chicagoan. You know,
mhm.
I look at that and I go, there's a shade of meaning that a lot of people aren't getting out of it. You know, Chicago is not New York, and if you set something in Chicago, it's going to be very different than if you set it in New York. For example, you go and set it in London, forget it. Now we're talking about two completely different countries. Culture is different. And I think that's the problem. People forget that culture is important too.
Yeah, much different places. 1960 Alabama from 1980s England.
Exactly.
And I think they argued that it was too mature and scary for the target audience. I don't necessarily have a problem with that because when I was a kid, I used to watch terrifying children's movies. Like every children's movie in the 80s was kind of scary if you think about it.
Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like there was this expectation that was okay, that kids could handle it more. I don't know if that's more or less true now. I don't really know. But yeah, there's something to the films of Roald Dahl, based on Roald Dahl books that have been done by Tim Burton, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory notwithstanding, have been a good connection. Tim Burton works really well with Roald Dahl's,
Material.
source material. Yeah. I think that he made some serious missteps with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I'm not going to say the casting of, but the characterization that they chose for Johnny Depp in that film, the additional character of his father, that whole backstory never should have ever happened. But by and large, Tim Burton is a good match for Roald Dahl's source material. And there is a certain mentality that needs to go into a Roald Dahl adaptation. That's all I can offer to this topic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember what other Roald Dahl movies Burton did, but Robert Zemeckis is doing this one, and
I have nothing against Robert Zemeckis. Let's face it, he's done some of my favorite films.
yeah,
I'm just thinking that some of these choices were a serious misstep.
yeah. Funny. The reviewer compared it, said the style was similar to movies like Polar Express. But and I thought that was odd because this is a live action movie, so I wasn't sure what she was referring to there. I really loved Polar Express. Some people are mixed on it; they thought the kids were creepy, but I took that as a moving Norman Rockwell painting. That's what that movie looked like to me.
Oh my gosh, absolutely! Yeah. That's already become a Christmas classic.
Yeah, I loved Polar Express. He did other movies. He did that Beowulf movie with Angelina Jolie and Ray Winstone.
I didn't see it.
It's odd. It's odd. Anyway, what else did he do?
I'll be honest with you. Unless it's really bad, I would say anything that gets Beowulf into the public consciousness is probably a good thing.
It was interesting. I'll say that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you'll like it because, of course, it's not completely faithful to the story, but it seemed. I liked it better than that Canadian live action production. That was the other Beowulf they did. But okay. But let's see. But they said he was doubling down on all the late writers' eccentricities, and I'm thinking, is she referring to Roald Dahl? Is that bad? I don't know.
Well, I hinted at this a little bit on one of the professor's recent streams. Roald Dahl was an odd duck. He really was. He put some stuff into his children's books that don't mean a lot, in the context of the children's books, but taken in context with his other writings, his more adult writings, very, very creepy. If you want to go down a terribly disturbing rabbit hole, do a little research on what a snozberry is.
Oh,
and but be warned, if you choose to go down that route, don't blame me. I'm warning you in advance. You may not like what you find.
Is this like curiosity killed the cat sort of thing?
It could be, yeah.
Okay.
So there's a line in the original book which appears in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Snozzberry. Whoever heard of a snozzberry? And this is when they're licking the flavored wallpaper.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
And remember, this is a young girl who is saying this line, right?
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think the snozzberry is?
I'll jump down the rabbit hole later.
Yeah, I'm not encouraging anyone to do it. I'm just saying, if you're interested, there's a book called My Uncle Oswald. It's a very adult book. It was not written for children, and it gets into what a snozzberry actually is in the world of Roald Dahl.
Oh no.
And it becomes very disturbing when you read that in light of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, well,
and it was intentional. It was what he meant. It was a disgusting joke, and it just filthy.
It was the late 60s, early 70s, right? So
yeah.
Anyway, apparently the Witches went straight to HBO Max. I assume this was supposed to be a theatrical release, and they said the year's getting longer, and we're not releasing anything. Or
in a way, this could have very easily fallen under our update of Hollywood's, apocalypse. I think that's exactly it. And in fact, I think our next topic is going to get into that too. It's every time you see something that gets released on streaming instead of in the theaters, it's a failure on the part of Hollywood. They're taking a loss.
And this is Ghostbusters Afterlife getting postponed. Is that your next topic?
Yeah. So it's just getting pushed out even further. We knew we weren't going to be getting it until 2021. Now it's not until summer of 2021. And I'll be honest with you, if you read between the lines, they're kind of saying summer of 2021 because we're kind of assuming that this whole CV thing will be, taken care of by then, but there's no guarantees on that. I think part of it also depends on who wins the election in November.
Yeah, probably. We'll know more about that in a couple weeks.
In a couple weeks, exactly.
Ghostbusters Afterlife, though, the title. Director Jason Reitman, the son of producer Ivan Reitman.
I got to be honest with you, I'm pretty fired up about this. Nanette and I have been getting our Ghostbuster costumes together so that we can go to the actual cinema to watch this darn movie when they release it.
I am more cynical.
Really?
Well, for starters, this is Sony. I don't like Sony Pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll at least say this for Disney. They at least spend money on things.
Yeah.
I keep thinking that the whole thing with it being in the country and all this is because they didn't want to spend the money to shoot in New York City. But maybe
absolutely. I actually don't see that as a downside. I actually see that as a plus. It goes back to what I've been saying for the past couple of weeks, Aged Boomer, that Hollywood needs to focus on the story and not on the spectacle. Find ways to cut cost and make up the difference in the storytelling. And everything I've been seeing so far has been kind of positive in terms of the storytelling. Let's face it, the fact that they've decided to make such a blatant course correction from the Answer the Call, Ghost Girls, is a positive in my mind. That in and of itself deserves some accolades and applause. The fact that this is an actual sequel and not a reboot. Well, let me rephrase that. It is a reboot, but it's the kind of reboot where it's a direct sequel and not a retcon.
It takes place in the universe of the original movies.
Exactly. That I can appreciate. Plus, it also, I think because it's Reitman's son, because it's very personal to him, I also see him being very sympathetic to what's his name? The actor that played Egon.
Harold Ramis.
The fact that Harold Ramis died, he's being very honorable about that and focusing on the family of that character, I think is a very personal thing for him. It's like, yeah, my father died, this actor died, and he's kind of playing it out through that. I think that's going to end up being a net positive for the story.
Okay, so maybe the director will make all the difference with this movie.
Maybe.
So
I'm not. That's not a hill I'm prepared to stake my reputation on. But right now, I feel very positively about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Enough so that, like I said, I'm using it as an excuse to get my proton pack, and we bought a couple of the Neutrona ones from Hasbro, and
Cool.
Yeah, we're all set for that.
We'll need to see pictures of those if you put them on.
Yep. The only reason that pictures don't exist yet is because probably the simplest but most core part of it is the jumpsuits, and we haven't gotten our jumpsuits yet. So
I just feel like, to make a Charlie Brown reference, I feel like Lucy with the football, and I'm Charlie Brown, and I'm going to kick it each time, and
God, I understand.
Yeah. And it feels like every one of these, and something about this is, I don't know what it is, but it's reminding me of the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie. Remember when it first came out, and people were generally positive?
Yeah.
It wasn't perfect, but then as time goes by, maybe we're not so excited about it. Maybe it's because the subsequent movies were far worse.
Yeah.
And plus there were a lot of problems even with the original movie when you look back on it. And I don't know, like I say, maybe I'm being too cynical here. But
well, it's not like your cynicism exists in a vacuum. It's predicated on having been disappointed so many times before. I certainly understand that. At the risk of sounding, all sunny and light, like our cohort in crime, it does require a wait and see. We don't know until we know.
Okay, but do you think it'll get postponed again? Or will they
ask me that after the election?
Maybe they'll move it up too. That could happen too, right? I mean, we haven't heard of that happening yet, have we?
Seems unlikely.
Okay.
It seems unlikely because if they've put it off that far, that tells me that there's still work. I don't know if it's done and it's in the can and they're just deciding when to release it, or if there is stuff that still needs to be done that they can't do because of the restrictions. And until the restrictions are lifted, they can't even start it. The answer to that question is what really determines whether or not they can go, nope, we've got it in the can. Things have changed. We can put it out in March. Or nope, we still have editing to do. It can't happen before summer.
Gotcha. Okay, so we'll wait and see. But June 11th, 2021, it feels like I'll be watching this year's movie next year or beyond. So,
in fairness, this has given me the time that I needed to get my whole costume together. So I can at least I can say that it's a net plus for me personally.
Oh, and Arcade Burns has a suggestion for you. He says, if you're going to get official Ghostbusters props and costumes, I recommend visiting Spirit Halloween on November 1st. Everything is half off. That's good to know.
Oh, I wish I'd known, man. See, the situation was it last year or the year before when they first released all of that stuff at Spirit Halloween? It sold out so quickly that as soon as the following year came and they restocked, Netter and I just went and bought them full price just so that we had them.
Gotcha.
If they're getting marked down now, our loss, because we already have literally everything. We even got the stupid little badges that are non-canon but looked really cool. So
cool.
There is a Chicago branch of the Ghostbusters that we've been not loosely affiliated with, but I followed them on Facebook. But I've had a really hard, they have been unresponsive. We may end up just starting our own Ghostbusters, branch here in the Chicago suburbs.
Yeah. Well, so it's the Chicago branch versus the New York branch, right? It's no, you should call it the franchise.
Actually, just about every major city in the U.S. has their own Ghostbusters branch, and they've got their own badge and so forth.
You should call them franchises, though, because wasn't the idea that they were going to franchise it? Franchises available.
Yep. Yeah, and that's how a lot of them are thinking of it. They're kind of operating within the canon or whatever you would of what was the second cartoon, the Extreme Ghostbusters or something like that.
Yes.
Where got into the whole franchising thing, and they take a lot from the role playing game and stuff too. I actually think that would be a great video to do sometime, just talking about Ghostbusters and how their expanded universe or whatever has been a huge success where a lot of others have failed.
Yeah, definitely. I remember I actually just started watching Extreme Ghostbusters because it's on Hulu, and I'm
Mhm.
liking it a lot. It reminds me of the original Ghostbusters cartoon a lot.
Yep.
It's like the next generation,
And
though.
talk about, the representation where it works, the kid in the wheelchair and, people of different ethnicities. And it's like, that's cool. No problem with any of that.
Yeah, no problem at all. But uh, back to the drawing board makes an interesting comment that they won't push up the date because of merchandising, and that's a big. There's going to be a big merchandising push, and yeah, I keep forgetting that.
That's a brilliant point. Back to the drawing board. And in and of itself, enough reason for me to be totally okay with it. A lot of the positive spin people try to put on these things being pushed out, like Dune, for example. Well, it's important that this does well, because if it doesn't do well, we won't get a sequel. And so we want this released in theaters and blah, 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 blah. That's true with Ghostbusters, but it's not just that we won't get a sequel. It's we want it to do well in the marketing. We want all the toys. We want all the stuff. So, oh my gosh, Ghostbusters. I'll tell you what, Hasbro and all the other companies are making tons of money off of licensing on this for a movie that hasn't even come out yet. They're just making money hand over fist. This, in a way, is a success story for Ghostbusters. So they can't keep putting it off forever, but the postponements have actually been a good thing so far.
Okay, maybe it's increasing hype. I didn't think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of hype, are we excited for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I wrote down 2, but that's not the title of the movie. Okay. A Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel.
I think it's called Face of Madness.
The Face of Madness. That's
based
the
on that
poster.
article.
Returns in 2021. The Face of Madness. They shared the poster in Bloody Disgusting. And I'm a little interested in this because I hope I'm saying his name right. Fede Alvarez. He's the man that did the Evil Dead remake and also Don't Breathe. And those were 2. I actually like both of those movies. I know some people maybe didn't like the remake, but I did like the Evil Dead remake. And they were both very, kind of gross, disturbing movies. And I think he might be perfect for a Texas Chainsaw sequel.
So I am probably the wrong audience for this. I wasn't a huge fan of the original. What do you call it? Keeping in mind that I do realize that Texas Chainsaw Massacre has the same real world inspiration as Psycho and some other films, being Ed Gein, right?
Yeah.
I get that. Unfortunately, I didn't feel that as classic as the original film is, it wasn't the best execution. It was very much kind of a torture porn kind of exploitation type of film of its time, and in some ways that's why it's such a classic. But I mean, there was a remake of that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't care for the remake. I
didn't see it, but I can imagine where a remake could actually be better. Whether or not it deserves a sequel or benefits from a sequel would be a question better posed to a true fan of it. But I got to say, I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other. We're just here to report on this one, or I am.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm hopeful as one who actually does like the original movie. It's funny. I remember buying that on DVD way back in the early days of DVD. And this was
I know you have strong feelings about the medium.
Yeah, I love DVD, but this was the original DVD release, and I mentioned to my mom how I was getting the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. She got all angry and I never saw her get angry about a movie before.
Wow.
I can't believe you're buying this movie, and it was celebrating those horrible people that did those horrible things, and it's all a lie.
Yeah,
that never actually happened.
Right.
It's very low budget. I will say this: I had to get rid of that old DVD because that don't look so good on an HD TV. I had to upgrade to the Blu-ray for that because that was Super 16, No, not even Super 16. I think just regular 16 millimeter, and those don't look so good in HD these days. So it's probably showing its age. I have heard people call it like a dark version of a Scooby Doo episode.
Yeah, in a way, it kind of is. It's interesting. Your mother's reaction is very. If I was to break it down and analyze it, first, we know just from the writer director, saying it was inspired by Ed Gein, so there is a real world analog. But I think a lot of people also mistakenly attribute it and connect it to the Manson murders. It's not directly related to it. I don't think there was any conscious connection between the two, but I think that a lot of in the public zeitgeist, I think there's a connection that's made between those.
Oh, interesting.
So I think I can understand where your mother might be coming from.
Right, right. But it's always loose, though.
Yes,
I
exactly.
mean, it's the Richard Roper used to always the film critic Richard Roper used to always say there's a big gap between the line based on and true story.
Oh, we could do a whole show about that.
But we'll see. Like I said, Texas Chainsaw is not for everyone. Horror movies I've noticed too, even within horror fans, they either love a movie or they don't, and it tastes differ from person to person. That's why on my wonderful 31 horror movies to watch on Amazon Prime, if you are Amazon Prime subscriber,
That's right.
I have 31 movies on there, and they range the gamut. We have old-fashioned gothic horrors from the 1960s. We have some of the more modern horror movies on there. I have a Japanese horror movie on there, Italian horror movies on there. It's some 80s horror movies. So it's all different kinds of horror movies. So just because you may not like one genre, you may like another. Maybe you're more into the classic stuff like the anthology.
So how did you choose your 31? I mean, were they just your own choice, or
these are 31 horror movies because I have very eclectic taste in horror movies. And I'll basically, if I thought it was good, it made the list, and it also had to be on Amazon Prime. But you have to be an Amazon Prime subscriber, okay?
Yeah.
Like if you do the free 2-day shipping, and they give you a whole bunch of stuff to watch, because there's a lot of junk on Amazon, but there's good stuff too if you know where to look for it.
I'll be honest with you, Netter and I are Amazon Prime members. It's the only streaming service that we pay for. The reason that it's funny, Netter became an Amazon Prime subscriber specifically because she was doing a lot of stuff with ordering and shipping and that kind of thing, and there was an upside for her. But then we realized, do you realize that we're actually getting the streaming service too as a result of that membership? Ooh, so every time something would come up and the professor was doing a rewatch that was available on Amazon, that it would be like, I don't need you to find it for me out on the high seas. It's on Amazon.
Yeah, they have good stuff on there. They have a lot of mainstream movies. So if any of you are bored this Halloween, need movies to watch, and if you're a Prime subscriber, just check out my video. I even put the list of them in the description, so you can just look at the list if you need to.
I'll bet you that a good number of them, though, are also available on Tubi. It's worth looking into Tubi because it's free.
Got a lot of good stuff. I thought about doing a Tubi video, but I ran out of time. But making videos on your own is not easy.
I was going to say, though, you still have almost a week left. You can still do one for Tubi as well.
I'll see. I can't promise anything, but who knows?
There's a lot of bad ones on Tubi. That might actually make an even better video.
We'll see. I've seen a lot of bad horror movies along the way, but we'll see how this.
I just want to hold up Big Al and his video about Ouija Shark. It's a horrible movie that he did not recommend, but I actually don't even know what to say about it. Netter and I watched it, and we're not sure if we're better off or worse off for having seen it. It was about as terrible as you could possibly imagine.
Cool. And I that one always reminds me of the Exorcism on a Plane movie I keep seeing advertised as well.
Exorcism on a Plane?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
But that's the premise, okay? And that strikes me as ridiculous.
Oh gosh. Okay.
All right. Moving on to the next horror topic. DC Comics.
Oh, for crying out loud. So we got two topics here.
I think they blend together, so we should cover them as one. DC drops UCS Comics distributors for 2021. Lunar.
I realize this is extremely unprofessional of me, but if you don't mind, go ahead and talk about this topic for a moment. Maybe read a little bit of the article. I need to pull a Professor Geek real quick, and I'll be right back. Okay. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'll be back.
As you know, Agent Boomer, he's an expert on comic books. No, he's not. But anyway, DC drops UCS Comics distributors for 2021. Lunar, Diamond, and Penguin Random House, they're still going to be distributing those comics. I think Penguin Random House mainly does the graphic novels. Weekly releases go to Lunar Distribution. Orders under $125 will be held. So you got to put in over $125 for the comics, and they ain't going to be shipping from the sound of it. UCS criticized for late or damaged delivery. So it looks like this might be a problem with a bad distributor, but we'll see. The other big article is DC Comics Future Slate. This is something they're going to be unrolling, I believe, next year. It's in January and February. It's going to be a glimpse into a future timeline where the multiverse has been altered by the finale of Dark Knight's Death Battle. And I'm not sure if I remember when that was. Was that the one that had the Cenobite looking different Batman that looked like Cenobites? I'm not sure. But anyway, this new future slate, it'll include 25 new books. $7.99 cover price. The person in the article mentioned that's a hefty chunk of change to discover the density of the DC universe. The month of January will set you back $125, so start saving your pennies, guys. $250 for both months. So, and the interest. I went to the next article, and I just want to mention some of the interesting things for the future slate are Superman exiled on Warworld. Bruce Wayne is the Dark Detective and not Batman anymore. And for some reason, Wonder Woman is wearing Batman's utility belt.
Okay, so let's back up here. First, the one thing I do want to get across about DC Futures, the thing that has changed from their Dan DiDio original plan was that it is no longer mainline canon. It's now considered more of an Elseworld possible future kind of thing. They're taking everything and they're throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks, which is not as bad. You know, it's not a hardline thing. They're going to see how the fans react to it. But unfortunately, the fans can make bad decisions. Look at all that's come from the Dark Knight and things like that. You know, it was never meant to be anything but a possible dark future, and they decided they wanted to make it real, you know. And so I think we're seeing a lot of that with these possible futures. They're going to say, well, a lot of this doesn't. No, this is fine. Thank you. They are going to put out all of these possible futures and see what the fans respond to positively and go, okay, we're going to really work towards that. And we're going to make that a real future storyline. But okay, they responded very negatively to that. So this is not going to happen. That's what they're currently saying is the current plan. On the one hand, I think it's the right kind of thinking for DC, but unfortunately, there is something to be said for the fans are sometimes their worst enemies, you know, and I think a lot of where we are in comics is partly because of the fans and listening to the fans too much. You need to know when to listen to the fans and when not to, is what I guess I'm getting at.
Yeah. Did the fans want the Dark Knight's death metal?
I was thinking more along the lines of things like The Dark Knight Returns, Killing Joke, and things like that. Things that were written outside of canon and very dark, and the fans were like, oh, that's really cool. I like that. And iconic fans are going, no, what are you doing? Oh, God. You know?
Well, I think someone would point out maybe that's good for a standalone story, but not good just to make the entire thing like that week after.
But as the professor has pointed out to us, unfortunately, what ends up happening is it ends up becoming canonized, and it's, you know, that boat's already sailed, and it's too late now. You know,
but they're going to be introducing different things. We have Yara Flor, which is a Brazilian Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Another
what do they call it? Another class or offshoot of the Amazons up till now unknown and forgotten. And it's like, okay, this trope is getting old really fast.
Anyway, is this like the Spider-Verse where they have the different Spider-Men?
This is worse because it's not different universes. This is, the Lost Tribe,
Oh, I see. So
yeah. So apparently some branch of the Amazons left and went to Brazil. Actually, I kind of see it because there really is an Amazon river in South America. And I always wondered why there wasn't a connection there. But we've already got, the whole clan that's got Nubia, in Africa. And we've got another Roman Greek.
So they've done this before. Okay.
Yeah. So this will be like the fourth offshoot of the Amazons. And it's like, are you going to literally make an offshoot of the Amazons on every continent? This is getting ridiculous.
Yeah. But we get Teen Titans, Red X, Red X anti-hero and antagonist are both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him from the Teen Titans cartoon. Anyway,
I have nothing to say about that. I don't even know.
Yeah, it started out as that was an alter ego for Robin when he was going after Slade, also known as Deathstroke. He dressed up as Red X because he wanted to dress up as a villain. So Deathstroke would Slade would hire him, have him work for him to get in with the organization and stop him that way. But it was this whole thing about how he was lying to his friends and how that was wrong, and because it was a children's show, but it was a well done little story. I don't know. DC. So what did we think of the whole distributor situation though, Troy?
Well,
orders under $125 will be held. Is that normal?
No, as a matter of fact, plus there's also they've been talking about the buyback program, which is another big surprise. On the one hand, a lot of people are saying good because we've needed that for a long time. Others are saying it smacks of desperation. I am not entirely certain what to make of that just yet. This is one where I'm kind of two minds about it, and I have to take a wait and see until I see which way it's actually going. For the longest time, we've been saying that comics in general, not just DC Comics, need to diversify in their distributorship. But I think right now there's a lot of flailing going around. So the fact that they dropped a distributor, I'm not yet sure what that means. I can't comment intelligently on that yet. This is one of those ones where we'll have to wait and see.
Okay. And apparently, though, the future slate will have 25 new books. $7.99 each cover price might set you back $125 for the month of January alone.
Yeah, I think that the comic books are going to have to learn the same lesson as Hollywood. If you want people to consume your product, you got to find a way to bring the prices down, because let's face it, we are in the middle of a depression here. Nobody is saying it, nobody is calling it that, but it absolutely is. It fits the definition. Nobody has the extra money for this BS. So we're not going to spend an extra $30 on your streaming movie that nobody wants. Nobody is going to spend $8 on your comic book that nobody wants. You're going to have to find a way to get the price down, or it's not going to sell.
You said the D word, and I kind of wanted to stick my fingers in my ears and go, no.
Well, that's the problem. A lot of people are doing that, especially the people in the media who have a responsibility to say that word.
They don't care. I was terrified when we got this pandemic because I was like, everyone's worried about the disease. I'm worried about the economic fallout.
You're an istophobe who wants grandma to die. You evil capitalist.
I mean, we may not have movies anymore at the rate things are going.
Yeah.
Hollywood thinks it's invincible to this stuff. They aren't.
Yeah. Let me put it this way. I lost a lot of friends because they were more concerned about whether or not I wear a mask than whether or not I kept my job and my health care.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't care if you die because I don't want the people in the nursing home to die. Well, blame your politicians and the healthcare system for that. Don't blame me.
That was a disaster.
And they thought I was completely heartless. And now I'm literally in the situation where I've been out of work for 6 months. I've lost my health care and I can't afford my medication. Yeah. So now it's okay if I die.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to be such a downer in the middle of a show, but these are things that people are going to have to start paying attention to. Let's quit beating around the bush and trying to put a positive spin on things. I said it when the pandemic started, and it's even more important now. People are dying because of the decisions you're making, more so than they are because of this stupid virus. Get the F over it. Get your heads out of your asses already, people.
And yet,
I'm not talking theoretically. I'm talking about real life.
Yeah. And yet companies still think they can charge $7.99 for a comic book.
Exactly. Thank you for bringing it back to exactly. That's exactly it.
The point is, entertainment is a luxury, and especially after how they've not exactly been kind to the fans over the years either. The people,
and all these things that we've talked about as theoretical, and saying how these things are going to hurt their business, and there's only so long that they can keep making these dumb decisions before they find themselves out of business. This whole situation this past year has put a fine point on it. There is no arguing theory. This is absolute fact now that they must deal with. So when I say $7.50 is too much to charge for a comic book, and other people in the industry are talking about how the mom and pop shops are going out of business, how the heck what does it matter who your distributor is? Who are they going to distribute to when the shops are all closing up because they can't be open because of lockdowns? And now, like I said, I can't even afford my health care. I'm going to go out and buy comic books.
That's the thing. I'm trying to remember back to the Great Depression. I used to hear stories of the Great Depression from my dad and my aunt.
Yeah.
And, my dad was a child during the Depression, and, there were nights where, the meal was pretty lean,
Well, let me, keeping it focused on the comics.
Yeah.
The comics were pennies.
Yeah, he would buy comics, though, when he was a kid.
That was because they weren't a luxury. They were an option. They were a cheap option to more expensive options, right? I can't afford these other things that cost so much more money, but I can afford a pulp comic for a couple pennies.
Like you can't afford a fancy toy, but you can go out and buy a comic. You can't go to the Broadway.
Exactly.
You can go to a movie theater, that sort of thing. And now the things that were the cheap alternatives are now turning into these luxury items.
And people need to start looking back at but again, this is an example of people that forget their history. They're going to suffer because of it. Unless they look back at the history of comics and understand why they did so well during the original Depression, are not going to survive this Depression.
Yeah. It's horrible to think about, and no one's paying. I don't want to say we're in denial of it, because obviously lots of people out there are hurting right now, but it's just, I think that the national focus has been on other things. That's the impression I get. Eventually, though, things will not be able to be ignored even by the mainstream, but who knows? Maybe I'm being optimistic there. I don't know.
Well, I'm not even concerned about the mainstream media anymore. We have so many options that the mainstream media has become a joke.
Like this channel here.
Exactly. I'll tell you, more and more people are turning to YouTube, and when one of their favorite options on YouTube gets banned from YouTube or dropped, they just go to BitChute.
Yeah. I'm also going to say this too. I'm at the point, especially with a lot of the mainstream stuff that comes out, it's not about whether something's worth my money at this point.
Yeah.
It's about whether something is worth even my time.
Yes.
Because there are plenty of ways. Money. There are plenty of ways to watch, read and watch things, even legally.
Yep.
If you have a library card, you'd be surprised what libraries have. And it's for me
like a librarian.
Yeah. Library assistant, but anyway, we won't get into that. But what was I going to say here, though? But it's just, even with me, with this channel, I'm happy to have all my viewers watching right now. No one owes me money. I'm happy they're just watching me at this point. Okay?
Right.
And it will take years, if this even does become anything that could be, have anything transactional as far as
that's right. 29 subscribers, guys. Get the word out. If you like this show, start sharing it with your friends, because they'll probably like it too.
I need 2,900 subscribers probably.
That's right.
Anyway, but actually, members of the network are getting up there. I know Sound Engraver is, so good for her. I know she's been at it a long time, so she deserves it. But
I think she's just blessed by God because
maybe.
she is just a special, sweet soul.
There you go. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because I'm also going to say this too. Where are the comic books going to be sold if all the comic shops close up?
Exactly my point. Who are the distributors going to distribute to?
Yeah.
I it's not too dissimilar from Hollywood and the theaters, right? You know, you got to care about the theaters if you want your movies to be shown somewhere. You know, comic book companies need to be concerned about the mom and pop shops or who's going to sell your comics.
Yeah. It's kind of depressing though. I mean, I'm not really a comic book follower myself. I mean, I've read comics over the years, but I wasn't like one of these guys that kept buying all the DC comics. I know that was really the Professor and all of them. They would buy, and I used to love hearing to the rants and hearing about what was going on, because I would hear things about what was going on at Marvel and DC and how they sort of had different issues.
Yeah.
Whereas,
unfortunately, over time they became the same.
Yeah, I think
they took in some of the same people from Marvel and then just made all the same mistakes.
My impression as an outsider was that Marvel was going woke, but DC was getting sleazy.
Yeah.
And then eventually the sleaziness gave way to then also becoming woke. That's the impression I got, because it's just, I don't know, it's depressing.
Yeah.
But,
Mr. Matchstick makes a good point. He says the worst and best thing about this is the depression might be good for Hollywood. The guys in Hollywood making crap products are going to not be able to survive. I'm saying the same thing about comics too. Ultimately, you got to get leaner. You got to start making things cheaper, and you got to start making things better, or you don't sell your product and you die.
I am going to say industries like the film industry can die. I mean, I brought this up. I watch a lot of Italian movies of the 60s and 70s and even the 80s. And when they were making those movies, they were not just, it wasn't just for Italy or Europe. They were trying to ship them around the world.
Yep.
Stuff like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. A lot of those spaghetti westerns, they would sell those around the world. England had a rather thriving film industry. You had all the Hammer horror movies.
Yep.
You had the James Bond movies, which still sort of exist now, even though now I think American studio releases them. But in the old days, they were independent productions that would get sold, and we still see pockets of that even today, like with stuff like Kingsman. But
there's some warped thinking about international marketing. So there is this idea that we want to diversify. We want our product to be available to as many markets as possible. But in so doing, unfortunately, they're running afoul of things like, well, China's a big market, so we also have to appease China. But you're finding it mutually exclusive. You can't, your product that's going to appease China is not going to fly in the United States. So you find yourself in a situation where you do have to choose. You know, do you market to China or do you market to the US? My argument would be if you market to the US, you can still market to Australia, the UK, most of Europe, you know, and be okay. I'm sorry, but you have a choice between China and the rest of the damn world.
Yeah, that's what it's feeling like lately. I mean, I'm still rather livid over what they did, even with the jacket of the Tom Cruise in that new Top Gun movie, which didn't end up getting released because of the beer bug. But
well, I mean,
because I think Taiwan was on the back of it, and
I've pointed this out on numerous streams in the past. Are you aware of some of the things that China has decided are unacceptable? Things like time travel, the supernatural. I mean, there's a whole litany of things that they find offensive. And it's like, that is the majority of what sells here.
There was a rumor going around about Rise of Skywalker that there was supposed to be a scene where all the Jedi like came to Rey in like Force Ghost form, and they didn't end up going with that. They just used voices because I think they were worried about China.
Yep.
And if you look at Rise of Skywalker, there's one scene with Luke as a Force Ghost in it, and that's it. That's the only Force Ghost we get. And I wonder, did they cut that out of the Chinese version? That's what I'm wondering.
So, and that's the other thing too. You hear about so many movies that they try to, like, what was the one, Doctor Strange, right? They decided to make the old one, this, you know,
Uh,
what's that? What's the actress's name? That Irish girl,
Scottish.
Scottish. Thank you.
Oh, she
You
was.
know who I mean. Instead of they didn't want to make her Tibetan because that would offend the Chinese. Well, congratulations. You did this to appease China, and they still won't let you play the
Nope.
damn movie there because it deals with time travel and the supernatural, you dumbasses. I mean,
Tilda Swinton.
Tilda Swinton, thank you.
Let's be honest here. Hollywood thinks. I sometimes wonder if it's a guessing game, knowing what was sold over in China. Wasn't Mulan made specifically for China, and then nobody went to see it over there?
Yep. They didn't like it in China, and they didn't like it here. And congratulations, you tried to appease everybody, and you appeased nobody.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, you try to walk the middle of the road. Eventually, you get hit by a truck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, they're literally left holding an empty sack. You're gonna have to choose. You're better off taking half the money you want to get than none of it.
Yeah. Well, if we want to move over to some good news, though, we do have a rumor, and this is a capital R under the rumor category.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently, there could be an Alita, and apparently there will be an Alita battle.
So they're exploring the Alita Battle Angel sequel.
They're exploring the Alita Battle Angel sequel.
Yeah. Let's face it. There was just backing up a little bit. Alita did pretty well, but not well enough to, in and of itself, merit financially a sequel. But it's got a diehard fan base that I consider myself a part of, that have really been pushing for it. If the beer bug hadn't hit the way it had, that resulted in the closure of whatever theater chain it is, Royal or Regal or whatever it's called, they were going to re-release Alita Battle Angel. And what happens with a re-release? You just add that to your bottom line. That takes whatever your box office is and increases it by this new release. That's why the original Star Wars is as big as it is, because it got re-release after re-release in the days before home media. So they were going to re-release Alita Battle Angel, and so Disney, who now owns Alita, is looking at it going, well, if there's that much demand for it, maybe there is worth it, because they're desperate. They're looking for anything that might bring them some money.
I will say this about Disney: we often get down on them, as far as being one of the worst studios. But I actually have a different take. I think that they are learning. Maybe
they haven't got a choice if they want to stay in business.
And I'm some ways I'm more hopeful for them than other Hollywood studios right now. I can't. Maybe that doesn't make sense.
You're being very pragmatic about it, and I think that's fine. If you get overly cynical, you're also not being realistic. Okay, I keep saying this. Whatever your bias is on either side, there's still the absolutes of finance. If a company fails, it all ends. They cannot allow that to happen. It's a publicly traded company. I happen to be a shareholder. There are realities that come with that. Your ideals mean nothing if your business goes out of business, right?
Gotcha.
So they are starting to look at those kinds of things, especially when you look at behind the scenes and you go, well, where is the Captain Marvel sequel? What is all this talk that I'm hearing about them minimizing the participation of Brie Larson? Gee, sounds an awful lot like they're listening to the bottom line.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you're roboting a little, which might be appropriate for a talk of Alita Battle Angel.
Sorry about that.
Okay, it happens. I can still make you out what you're saying, though. Well, I think Brie Larson has a public relations problem. I don't know how her YouTube channel is going. I haven't been keeping track.
It's not doing well. Yeah. It's been dropping off. There are sites that I don't know about, but Netter goes to and looks and sees how our favorite YouTubers are doing, and they calculate how much money they're bringing in, and she started out unrealistically strong, and it has literally dropped since then. Yeah, she's not doing well at all. Nobody cares. Even her fans don't care about her show anymore.
Yeah.
So,
But apparently, this Alita Battle Angel news
Mhm.
came from insider Daniel Rickman, and this was from the website Full Circle Cinema. And he said the film was met with poor reviews from critics and audiences, but has since drawn a cult following. I want to address this. Okay,
Mhm.
it was met with poor reviews from the shill media. Okay,
Yep.
the film critics I listened to liked the movie.
Yep.
Okay. Mark Kermo, the BBC guy, I believe he liked Alita Battle Angel. I mean, this was not considered a bad movie by most mainstream critics. This was I'll be blunt. I'm going to call a spade a spade. I think a lot of the criticism for Alita Battle Angel came from websites and others, the stuff owned by Disney.
Yep.
One of the worst things they did to that movie, and I understood it was a dirty trick. They were predicting bad box office for Alita Battle Angel before it came out. All
Yep.
these sites were saying that. And I think what that did, it puts in the mind of a moviegoer, well, it's not going to do well at the box office. And even though they're not saying it's a bad movie, I think when you say something's going to do bad at the box office, it's like, well, maybe I'll wait for video. Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
It kind of puts something in you. I don't know what it is, and it's.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I'll take it even further. This was Disney, and again, it was this odd alignment of situations. You can't look at Alita outside of its perceived competition with Captain Marvel. And it was very clear that Disney wanted to push Captain Marvel, and they were going to do so at the expense of Alita Battle Angel, which makes no sense because it was still their own property, even though it was an acquired property. Back then, they had the autonomy to make stupid decisions like that, the short-sighted decisions. They don't have that luxury anymore. They need every dollar they can get. And if Alita Battle Angel is going to make money for them now, they need to take advantage of that. And they are seeing more and more clearly that they backed the wrong horse with Captain Manhater.
Yeah. I actually ended up seeing Captain Marvel in the theaters. Did you know that? And I'm not going to lie, it felt like it felt like I was seeing a rather nice TV movie in the theater. It didn't feel like it had the budget that the other Marvel movies had. It felt like it felt more restrained in a lot of the ways.
Yeah. If you need something to do as well as they needed it to do, they did not put the effort into it. They let it coast. They let Brie Larson get away with her BS, and they were fine with it, and they didn't rein her in, and they didn't put the effort into the story that they needed to, and they just assumed that by putting it between the two big tentpole films, it was going to, and it kind of worked for them. It did pull a profit.
Yeah.
More so than it ever had a business doing because of how it was placed. But the reaction to it was not what they wanted. And the outcry and the fact that everything else seems to be tanking, the fact that her toys are just peg warmers. It's hysterical. You go look at what is in the Target and the Walmart budget bin, being liquidated, and it's a bunch of Captain Marvel stuff, Wonder Woman toys. Well, let's face it, Wonder Woman 84, because the toys were put out and the movie hasn't even hit. That was a bust in marketing. Rose Tico and all the other sequel trilogy toys. I mean, I'm telling you, people need to understand that the money doesn't come from how well a movie does. It comes from how well the toys sell.
Yeah, but I am going to say this too. I mean, I don't know who the market was for the Wonder Woman toys. If you're going to be buying a Wonder Woman toy and you're a kid, you're buying it because you just saw the new movie and you want the toy for it, right?
Yeah.
It'd be like me and a kid when Star Wars is out, and I got a Space 1999 shuttle, and I'm like, what is this thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I learned about Space 1999 many years later, but at the time I didn't know what this was. So it's
Exactly. There's a lot of people that have said that Star Wars did very, very well and the toys did very, very well.
Yeah.
If one or the other hadn't, there wouldn't have been sequels.
Yeah.
It was because both did so well that we had the sequels that we did with all the marketing that went into it. Now, one could also argue that that's why some of the bad decisions were made in Return of the Jedi. People didn't care for the Ewoks. Well, the Ewoks were specifically for marketing reasons.
I don't like to think about that, but you're probably right. Back to the drawing board. I'm gonna prognosticate Cameron is so off the source material, and now he's going to default to standard Hollywood storylines if there is a sequel. Well, yeah, I had a friend complaining about Alita being in the rollerball in the first part of the story, and she hadn't even read any Alita, but she could tell that was something that did make sense for a character to be doing. But I don't know. I still like the movie, but I do worry though if there is a sequel, especially if Disney's getting their mitts in, will it end up being something that's watered down than what we would have gotten?
I am going to defend Cameron a little bit. Cameron did this with the intention that it wasn't going to be a standalone movie, that it was going to be an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
And when you take a whole series and you go, okay, now we're going to turn this into a movie. I would make this argument if someone made if let's say the Deneuve, or however you pronounce his name, Dune movie. Okay. If they introduce some elements from future books into earlier movies, I'm not going to hold that against him, because that's somebody who looks at the whole timeline and says there's some things that were added later on that aren't very organic in the way the original author did it. Rollerball or whatever existed in the Alita world before she got involved in it. And she's going to get involved into it. So let's seed it into the beginning so it's more organic. That's not bad storytelling, The example I would draw is the introduction of the Bene Tlaxu in the Dune franchise in later books. Why were they never mentioned previously? Well, because the author hadn't thought of them before. Well, that's kind of bad storytelling. If you're going to go back and tell the whole story, you're going to weave them in earlier so it's more organic.
Yeah, I think the complaint though is that in the books, her joining up with Rollerball was a reaction in dealing with Hugo's death. She doesn't want to be a hunter warrior anymore. She's going to do the Rollerball thing now. At least that's what I've heard. I need to read the manga. I actually did buy that when it came out. I don't know if I mentioned this on the stream before. I felt bad when remember when the professor was showing off his expensive box set?
Yes.
And I told him to do a video on for the unboxing because maybe you'll get your money back for buying it, because I was like,
exactly.
I ended up getting the entire hardcover manga set, which came with 2 lithographs itself, the Blu-ray, and I think also the art book for $50 less than what he paid for the thing he got. Which I didn't want to tell that to him at the time. Maybe he's not. Hopefully he's not listening.
well, so, and the other thing that I was going to say about that is, and I struggle with this because I'm usually a purist about source material, but there is something, and the professor and I have both talked about this, how different media requires different storytelling.
Yeah.
What works visually. And I brought this up in a big way when I was talking about the David Lynch interpretation of Dune. There are things that he added for marketing reasons because the studio pushed him to it, but also for story reasons. The whole hair color for Jessica and the Harkonnens and stuff, and the new one is going to have the Harkonnens be bald specifically so as to not tip the hat on something that is not obvious in a book, but would be overly obvious in a visual medium, right? You do have to think about things like that.
Right.
So as they take something that's manga and turn it into a movie for an American audience, you have to think about different style of storytelling. You can't be 100% faithful. I'm sorry, but not everyone in the United States is going to respond to a perfectly adapted manga. They're just not. It's a different audience,
But I am going to say this, at least because I used to go. But what was I going to say though? I used to I wasn't familiar with the manga, but I did watch the original anime, and I was actually, I mean, I've seen other anime adaptations by Hollywood, and I think Alita is by far the best one I've seen, as far as only because I remember seeing Ghost in the Shell, and
Sure.
that didn't work, and I kind of wanted it to work too, but yeah,
I am not a huge anime fan.
right,
So I would be that kind of an audience that is going to
right,
go see a movie and enjoy it and go, sorry, I don't see what you're saying, right?
right.
I have seen at least some of the anime version of Alita, and it falls into what I perceive of anime is I get the basic story, but it seems kind of robotic to me. I don't necessarily always feel the characterization of some of these characters.
Well, yeah, I'll say this: all anime is different. Like an
Yeah,
OVA from like the late '80s, early '90s is going to be different than like a big production by Studio Ghibli.
sure.
It's as wide as and varied as anything else. And like I said, I'm not even saying you have to get into anime, but I'm just saying that so, people can have different tastes in anime, like they'll have different tastes in anything else. Like some people might like something by this studio or this creator, and not like something by something else.
Yeah. So back to the drawing board is saying that you're correct in the problem of it adapting. The problem is Cameron has also warped the characters. There's no way Alita can grow or tell the same story as her manga counterpart. I agree with you, back to the drawing board, but I'm also saying that if they did try to adapt the manga counterpart exactly, I don't think the audience would here in the United States would respond to it as well as they have. I love the character that we got in Alita. I fell in love with that character, as I could totally see it from Doc Ito's point of view, the father adopting the daughter kind of a thing. I would not have that response to the Alita that I see in the anime, So there are elements of drama that are worked in by Cameron because he does understand storytelling. When he gets it right, he really gets it right. So I'm always going to defend that particular interpretation of Alita. I'm sorry, I just happen to be the boisterous majority here in the States that aren't going to get upset about its absolutely faithful interpretation.
I will say this: all this talk though is reminding me I really need to read this manga set I have on the shelf. So
yeah.
And what else did I want to say though? But apparently, Alita, where Alita did very well, better than the United States. It did well in China.
See, there's a great example of when you do a movie that doesn't upset either side. If you can please everybody, freaking please everybody. And if you please the mass market in China and you please the mass market in the United States, and you lose the small minority of faithful diehard anime fans, I'm sorry, you have a commercial hit, and that's what's going to sell.
Okay. But I think I have a note here, though. For me, it's don't hold your breath, because I want this to happen, but everything's.
That was the underlying thing. It does smack of being a sensationalistic article that is based on almost nothing. It comes back to all that we've been saying all along. The fans have been crossing their fingers, hoping for a sequel, and are holding their breath and doing everything. The elite army is mobilized and will do anything they can to make it happen. But,
I think what we do know about it, though, is that at least it's being discussed.
Exactly.
But moving on to our next topic, what is no longer being discussed, and which apparently is in the works, which is interesting, is the Willow sequel series.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to start on that one?
This is from John Weiss of sci-fi.com.
Yep.
And apparently, it's going to be the showrunner is going to be John M. Chu of Crazy Rich Asians fame. And what I always say about Crazy Rich Asians is that it's the most expensive Hallmark movie ever made. No, sorry, I feel bad, but when I saw it, it said this is like one of these Hallmark movies out,
except with an ethnic cast.
yeah, and fair enough. I mean, and it was based on a popular book series too.
Right.
And it's funny. There are always all these reviewers saying, I'm seeing the rich part, but I'm not seeing the crazy part. And what people don't understand is it's crazy rich, like you're crazy rich.
Yes.
Do you understand? That's where that comes from.
It's not crazy, rich
right.
Asians. It's crazy rich Asians.
Yeah. And I think that's what people were getting confused on. Co-showrunner is Jonathan Kasdan of the man who wrote Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yeah. Which lost money.
It lost money. Yeah, and it lost directors too in the beginning too.
Yep.
It takes place several years after the events of the original movie. I imagine it would.
So here's the thing. There's a lot of speculation about exactly what it's going to cover. Has the baby grown up and become the Empress now? Or is this going to be a coming of age story for that character? There's pluses and minuses on both sides. If you make it that she's an adult Empress now, you've missed all that story in between.
They wrote a book series, sequel series, which I never read. I don't know if it'll be based on that. Of course, knowing how they treated the EU, I doubt they're going to bother going to the book series.
Don't be so quick to say that. Yeah. Knowing the way that they treated the EU, they might now rethink how they treated the EU. And start going, maybe because we own the rights to something, we can start considering mining already successful. I mean, I don't know how successful it was. It's Willow. It's not Star Wars.
I want to make a point too. Yeah, I have a comment here. Is there an audience for a Willow series?
So there is. There are clearly diehard fans of Willow that have fond memories of the original movie. But like I said, it's not like there is for Star Wars. You know, I mean, this is the kind of thing where if you were going to lose your fan base and pick up a new one, this is the kind of movie you do it on. But I don't know. It's not like we have one movie. You can argue that there's books and there's other speculative stuff out there, but there really is canonically only one movie. As long as you're faithful to that and do a sequel to it, it's kind of hard to screw that up.
Yeah.
Now, the obvious joke is it's Disney. If there's a way to screw it up, they'll find a way.
Well,
but you know,
Kathleen Kennedy is involved, so I'm not going to
exactly.
If Kathleen Kennedy wasn't involved, I would be fine, but I am worried that she'll be involved, and it's just going to be, and Laura Dannon, because I know that in the book sequel series, Laura Dannon, I think, grows up to be a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
And I think her whole own character is flawed and has to go through some growth. I never read him, though.
Here's the other thing. A very different situation. If they're going to do a deconstruction of Willow the way they did with Star Wars, it's very difficult to do because, first off, who was your hero in Willow? It wasn't really Willow. You know, it was Val Kilmer's character.
Mad Mortigan.
And there's no reason to believe he's even going to be involved in this. He could be, you know, old and dead by now in this story, you know? So if it's going to be focused on Willow and the baby, you know, on the girl, and they're going to focus on the girl, I don't think anyone's really going to have a problem with that. I don't think anyone's going to have a problem with her taking the hero role over Willow. But if you marginalize Willow too much, not only are you going to upset fans who loved Willow, there's a diversity issue there. Shall we put it that way?
Right.
You know, I mean, you can't, you know.
Warwick Davis wants to come back. I mean, I don't think it's going to be an issue, right?
No, not at all. Yeah. Not at all. And yeah, I mean, but again, he's probably not going to be front and center of it. He's more like as he was in the first movie, it's kind of told from his point of view, but it's not all about him, you know? he's more of the R2D2 C3PO character than he is the Luke Skywalker character. You know?
Yeah, but he was the title was after him. They didn't name. Well, of course, they didn't name Star Wars Luke either, did they? So
no, exactly.
Exactly. I remember when Willow came out. I really enjoyed it. I considered it a big Hollywood blockbuster, but there was always a contingent of people that didn't like Willow. People were either split on it. They either loved it or hated it.
I was one of the ones that enjoyed it, went to see it. It was George Lucas. I was all happy about it, but at the same time, I was like, why aren't you working on another Star Wars movie? You know,
I didn't care about it. I figured this would be the new Star Wars. I thought we would get like a trilogy of these next.
Would have been nice, and it just didn't do well enough to do that. But then again, he also went and turned around and started working on Howard the Duck, and that definitely was a waste of time for him. That was one that we could have gotten a Willow sequel. We could have gotten another Star Wars movie. We could have gotten American Graffiti 2, for crying out loud.
Were people crying for American Graffiti 2, though?
No, I'm just saying anything would have been better than
Howard the Duck.
The only thing that was good about Howard the Duck was Leia Thompson. That was the only thing that made that movie worthwhile.
I have made the argument that the first half of Howard the Duck is fine. As far as I'm concerned, it's if you look at it as an 80s comedy.
Yeah.
And then it gets stupid.
Yeah.
It gets stupid when the overlords show up. That's my own opinion of it. I think
I'll tell you, all the things that I liked about the movie, as an adult, looking back on the making of the movie, scare the crap out of me. All the things where I look at her rolling around in the bed with Howard the Duck, which I thought was great as a preteen teenager. When I realized that duck was played by a child, as an adult, that freaks me the heck out.
I didn't realize it was a child playing Howard the Duck.
It was, the kids that played Howard the Duck were traumatized by that movie.
Oh, this is disturbing me.
It's very disturbing. You
need to do. I've always threatened this whenever I mentioned you guys need to do Howard the Duck for a rewatch one of these days, just because I want to hear these stories. It's like,
you're right. Just to get these stories out, it would be worth doing a
actually. Disney now has Lucas and they have Howard the Duck, so they
will not. They will
do a remake. They'll bring Leia. They'll get the suit out of the.
What they will do is they will do it in the Marvel universe. If they do anything with it, it'll be part of the Marvel universe.
I want the old duck suit back. Get Tim Robbins back. Okay.
I'll tell you, there's part of me that the original Howard the Duck fan that goes, I want to see that cigar smoking, foul-mouthed duck from the comic books. But that's not going to happen under Disney.
People didn't understand when they thought it was going to be made. They thought, oh, let's get George. They should have gotten George Burns to voice him. Think about it.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That's okay. I don't know. Howard the Duck. We went from Willow to Howard the Duck because we're talking about the Lucas down before he started. But I always liked Willow. It did have a decent arcade game and it had a pretty good NES game too, as I remember. And they had those toys that were the weird toys that were fixed to platforms. Remember those?
Yeah.
They said
that was horrible planning. Considering the era of toys back then, that was the kind of thing where if you were going to do toys for that, you needed to go to Kenner and have them do the action figures, and they needed to make them compatible with Star Wars.
They should have.
That would have been the way to go about it. I don't know what they were thinking, but that was really poor planning. And I'll tell you, as someone who was getting into D&D at the time, that was great fodder for D&D stories. So I don't know. Yeah, it could be a great thing if they do it right. But at the same time, I kind of predict it's probably going to go about as well as the Dark Crystal series.
Yeah, that kind of was a flash in the pan. And I know they keep talking about doing a Labyrinth series too. So it's like all these 80s.
Oh God. Yeah, that's not gonna fly.
But I don't know. We'll see. This is one of these things where I would like to think that Disney just leaves it alone and they get good creative people behind it. I mean, apparently John M. Chu is a huge fan of the original movie. That doesn't always mean everything. Apparently, we had people that were supposedly fans of Star Wars.
That's my problem. There's a lot of people that come out and say they're huge fans, and they're absolutely not. They don't give a flying F. They just
I am going to say
say it because they are trying to get the fans on board.
I don't want to see Warwick Davis holding a dagger over someone in the movie and like losing his way. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to see a Luke moment for Willow.
I like Leia plus size comment there. I don't care for Howard the Duck. Leia Thompson with her ducky as her lover is not my thing. Look, I get what you're saying, Leia, but you got to understand I'm coming at it from the guy's point of view, and I don't even see the duck.
Yeah, but she looked good in that movie too.
Oh gosh, yes, she did.
She had the punk rocker look going on, which
yeah.
Okay. Well, should we move on to the final topic of the night?
Yeah, this is a kind of a mixed thing, but let's definitely.
It's not a mixed thing as far as I'm concerned. It's just bad. But maybe you have a silver lining here. Maybe it's making us realize how much we should have appreciated things when we had them.
Yep.
The Charlie Brown holiday specials will not air for the first time in 50 years. Now, I had heard about the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown not airing, and I was like, "Oh, that's awful." Well, at least we still have the Thanksgiving special and a Charlie Brown Christmas. Well, no, those will not be airing either.
Yep.
Apple has the exclusive rights on Apple Plus. They are not going to air on regular TV anymore.
Yeah, I can't post the link because it's too long for me to drop it in.
Well, you can just type it in the Google. It's everywhere. This was a big news story.
Yeah, the actual article lists as part of the title every Charlie Brown holiday, the titles, and that goes more than 200 characters, so I can't drop it in.
Have you ever seen It's Arbor Day, Charlie Brown?
I have that on DVD because it's one of all of the holiday specials that came in the holiday gift set cool. Have the original and like follow-up ones or additional ones that you'd forgotten existed. Like, do you remember that there are 2 Christmas specials?
Yeah, because they included the other Christmas one on the DVD.
And there are 2 Thanksgiving specials. Yeah, the second one is more just a story about the Mayflower. Yeah,
I was annoyed with my Halloween one because I thought they should have put the Election Day special on with the Halloween one.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's right.
It always follows Halloween, so
that's right. That's right.
Put that on there with it. But they put. I mean, it's a mystery. No, not it's a mystery. It was it's Magic Charlie Brown. That's a good special, but I already had that in my Miami collection, so
yeah,
I didn't need another copy.
So overall thing is that Apple has decided they bought up the rights to the Peanuts holiday specials and they're putting it behind their paywall, putting it only available on what was it, iTunes?
It's Apple Plus.
Whatever.
Which apparently you can get on the Amazon stick. I read an article. Okay, so that was interesting.
Whatever that is.
You can do a free trial for 7 days.
Yeah.
Okay. Just don't let it. Just be sure to cancel before then, or else they'll probably start charging you. It's $5 a month.
Yeah.
Apparently, there will be free options for everyone. Like they'll be free on certain dates. So I don't know if you install the channel.
Yeah.
And there's not a paywall around the specials for 2 days. So there you go.
I haven't done the research on that too much, but what I am going to say is that this puts the final full stop on a point that I keep bringing up to everybody. You're all upset about special editions and re-edits and the SJWs deciding to cancel things because the times have changed and whatnot. Well, this is another example. These things being bought up and put behind paywalls. If you love something, buy it, get it on physical media, and you own it forever, and no one can take it away from you, and no one can ever edit it. Don't just rely on your download that sits in your proprietary stream, because that can still be taken away from you. Go out there, get the darn DVD. I don't care if you have to write the DVD yourself or whatever you got, buy it secondhand, whatever. Get the DVD and own it. Okay? So that when we do a rewatch of it going forward, if you're not an Apple whatever subscriber, you still have access to it.
Yeah, because Netter wants to do a Thanksgiving special day before Thanksgiving, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the upside of this. We've already had the Fan Man and Big Al did a rewatch a couple weeks ago of the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown. So that's already been done. But Thanksgiving week, the day before, what is it? The day before Thanksgiving?
Yes.
That Wednesday,
Yeah.
Netter is going to do a rewatch of the Thanksgiving special.
And I'll be joining for that.
Yes, you will. So by all means, go out there, get your DVDs. Okay. Unless you really want to subscribe to iWhatever or Apple, whatever, you know. And she'll do the same thing come Christmas time too. She'll do a rewatch of the Christmas special.
I mean, and I think, don't quote me on this because I don't want anyone installing things on their devices they don't want to.
Yeah.
I think that maybe Apple Plus, to avoid the bad press, like maybe around Thanksgiving, they're going to have this special just public, the way something might be public on YouTube. You know, they have things on YouTube,
Sure.
they're public, and then there are things you pay for.
Well,
I think it'll be public.
They are getting a lot of blowback. A lot of fans are really upset about this. So they might make it free this season just because, oops, this is a PR nightmare for them. But I would not expect that going forward. Don't expect it next year and the year after.
This is depressing. I have to say, I don't know why this bothers me so much because I've been watching the DVDs anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a tradition for, what was it? It was over 50 years. It's like 50 years they've been doing this, and now they're not going to air.
Yep.
And it feels like a part of American culture kind of being, separated from the public again.
I'll be honest with you. I'm even at the point where watching it on DVD, I feel like is something missing because there was something to be said for the commercial breaks. Brought to you by Dolly Madison.
There's also something to be said for watching something when you know other people are watching it.
Yeah.
It's probably why people tune into this stream now, because they know it's live.
Exactly, because we can do a live a rewatch, and you can watch it with all of us, like we're all getting together at Grandma's house watching it. You know.
Yeah, I have to tell you, this really bothers me though. And at first, I thought it was just a Halloween special. I'm like, do they have all the Charlie Brown specials now? All the Peanuts specials?
Yep. Yeah, they do.
I don't know. Did you ever see the Peanuts movie, Troy?
Which one?
The newer one they did.
No, I did not.
I would recommend it. This was another reason why I was upset with 20th Century Fox being bought out by Disney, because 20th Century Fox was very careful when they made that movie. The Schultz, right? The Schultz estate was very careful. You better be careful how you treat these characters.
Yeah,
and they were. And what I loved about the movie is that it's a new story, but it kind of does callbacks to older stories, and like you'll see like Charlie Brown having flashbacks on his failures in life. And one of them is the tree from the Christmas special. And when they show the flashbacks, even though the movie is CG, even though they kind of make the characters look 2D-ish, when they do the flashbacks, they look like the old-fashioned Peanuts.
Oh wow, maybe I should check it out.
It's worth checking out. It's a nice, fun movie. It's a good family movie. It's all classic, except there are a couple modern pop songs in there, but the rest of it, it's all classic Peanuts. They're still using the typewriters. Snoopy's still typing on the typewriter, and it was a nice family feature film. And I don't know if 20th Century Fox got enough credit for it, and they're very careful with that Peanuts license, because when the movie was a big success, and I think they were going to want to do a sequel, and I think the Schultz estate said, yeah, maybe in 10 years we'll see. Like, they're not anxious to just loan it out to anybody to make a movie with, because they're very careful. But I'm glad it was successful, and I don't know if we're ever going to see anything new Peanuts wise in the future, but
well, I think that Disney is, I think going back to the Alita thing, I think they're now kind of looking and saying anything they own is fair game. They can't afford to not exploit every option available to them.
Yeah, and I think they may own the Peanuts movie, but I don't know. They don't own Peanuts, obviously, because they have to deal with the Schultz estate to get that out.
They own the licensing probably on the 2015 movie, but they would have to come up with another licensing agreement if they were going to do another one. So yeah, they're going to have to explore that possibility if it's even an option to them. I hope that the Schultz estate is being as guarded and careful about that property, more so than the Tolkien estate is being with the Lord of the Rings and that whole thing.
We'll know more about that as time goes on.
But yeah, so keep an eye out. I dropped the link for Netter's network by all means, make sure that you're subscribed to her because she will be doing those rewatches. So, like I said, go out, get your DVD copies so that you can watch along with us. And well, with her, I don't know if I'll be able to make it on a Wednesday night, but you don't need me. If you got Netter. That's the way I look at it.
Well, I'll be there too, and maybe Big Al will also join us, or maybe even I don't know if Sound Engraver's busy that night, but I think she likes peanuts. But
let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to Sound Engraver about this, but the Vince Guaraldi,
yeah,
that music is just iconic. That jazz music has become so much a part of Thanksgiving and Christmas. To the point that I think that Christmas time is here and so forth has just become part of most people's holiday playlist. You know?
They had a special on one of the DVDs about Vince Guaraldi and about how he wrote. I think he played the music live for it was supposed to be for a Peanuts documentary, the Linus and Lucy song. And then they didn't end up making the documentary. And then I think one of the channels, was it CBS or ABC, went to the Schultz and they were like, make a special for us. And the guy called up, do you remember that music you wrote? We need it now.
Yeah.
And luckily they were able to reconstruct it. But that was, I don't know. I like Peanuts. They were a big part of my childhood. And it's sad to see them off TV. But anyway.
We got to keep it alive. We got to do it ourselves now. So,
well, we'll see what the future holds. But yeah, that's kind of sad. And on that kind of sad note, let's. You want to go through the stuff during the week now?
Yeah. Nope. I take that back. In 5 minutes, guys. We got over on Mr. Matchstick's channel. He's doing a rewatch of Hellsing Ultimate 7 and 8 for his Weebwatch tonight. So if that is your bag, make sure you get over there. Heck, even if it's not, just click over there and give him a like and a thumbs up. And, well, I guess that's redundant, right? Give him a thumbs up and say hi. Help his algorithm out a little bit.
Cool. And let's see. And then tomorrow is Sound Engraver again. I don't know if she has a topic yet.
I don't know, but even if it's off the cuff, anything Sound Engraver does is definitely going to be worth your time. If you are not subscribed to her and ringing that notification bell and listening to what she has to say, you are doing yourself a great disservice. She uplifts anybody who listens to her.
And then Tuesday night is going to be a rewatch on the Professor Geek channel, I believe, of the Halloween Tree special.
Yep. This is going to be the first time I'm seeing it, but this is a follow-up to his book study of the Halloween Tree over the past couple Thursdays. Ought to be really good. He's likened it to A Christmas Carol, except for Halloween.
Yep. And let's see. I believe Wednesday, I could be wrong, but I believe the Fan Man is going to be doing his Second Cup Cafe in the early morning. Then I think he switched days. And I was days.
I forget what time it goes live, but I just dropped it. There we go. But you know what? If you like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, you won't miss it.
Okay, and
but then later on Wednesday, of course, we have Soundtracks with Birdman at 8:30 Eastern. What is the film or topic this week?
Dracula 79. It has the Universal Pictures Dracula 79 featuring Frank Langella as Dracula. This one has a score by John Williams. It's actually a rather creepy score. I think, I don't know if this is the first time Dracula was seen as kind of a romantic character, but it's definitely one of the first ones, I think. Yeah.
I would argue that the Bela Lugosi introduced the idea of him being romantic. I think Frank Langella upped it to more sexy, to be honest with you. That's just my take on it.
Possibly. It's interesting to see him as a leading man because I'm used to him as like the older gentleman.
Well, yeah, it was the opposite for me. I knew him from the Dracula. So when he was cast later on as like Perry White, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
Hey, you know, good for his age. I'm not picking on him, but yeah,
right.
Seeing him as a, but and then Green Lion Girl has a game stream also going on that night.
Yeah, I believe she's doing the Friday the 13th game, something about a virtual cabin or something. very interested in that. If I can, I'd like to at least check out part of that.
Yeah, check it out. It might be fun telling her to, kill this counselor, kill that counselor. It might.
Exactly.
I've seen that game in pieces, but it looks like it'll be a fun stream on her channel. And Thursday, what is Professor Geek doing?
So then Thursday he will be talking about the what's it called? The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. He's going to be talking about the original story and then watching the Disney feature.
Oh yeah, I remember. I have to post something in the group. I found the original song that song was based on. I forgot who sang it, but it had a female singer.
Oh, okay.
And it was before the Bing Crosby one. I think Disney licensed it for the Sleepy Hollow. I'll post that in the Professor Geek.
Oh yeah, do that. That'd be great.
That'd song, be great. Actually, it's neat to hear a female vocalist on it. It has a different feel to it. And then Friday will be Friday Night Frights, I believe. I know that he's been having some bad luck this month, but
yeah, I think it's supposed to be the what's it called? That found footage film, Blair Witch.
Oh, excellent. Okay, that's a classic. And then for Saturday, you're going to be doing a rewatch of what?
Actually, it's over on Big Al's channel.
Big Al. Halloween.
Ha Ha Halloween, and it is Young Frankenstein.
And that's
the Mel Brooks classic.
That's a nice cap, I think, to all the Frankenstein movies we've been doing.
Exactly. Which was exactly why they wanted to get to what was it, Son of Dracula? Or not Son of Dracula, Son of Frankenstein, because so much of that specific movie is directly parodied by Young Frankenstein.
I want to rewatch Young Frankenstein now just to see the detective with the prosthetic arm.
Right.
Okay, cool. Well, listen, thank you everybody for showing up. We appreciate you. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Also, be sure, if you haven't already, to join the Professor Geek group.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. I got to drop that link, too.
All right. Any last words, Troy?
Nope. I just appreciate you putting up with all my rants. The fact that you made it this far, we still have 12 watchers. So that means a dozen of you actually were not completely put off by my rant. So thanks so much for putting up with me. All right. Well, everyone have a happy Halloween, and I'll see everyone next Sunday. Good night, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.